Everybody, welcome to a meetup about a new beta. This will serve as somewhat a reference for those that are in the beta testing, since I haven't updated the manual for this yet. I'm just going to go over all the new features and all of that that's going on. I might get distracted here or there. There's a lot going on over here at the moment. Like there was just a banging that totally took me out of the element. So, yeah. How are you doing, Mikey?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
Meh. Today is crazy. We have our pickups for pre-orders that are shipping out, and then the rest of the pre-order batch should be shipping out. The label should be created tomorrow morning. So we're kind of just, it's a crazy time right now. But I wanted to get this beta out sooner than later. So how should we start? I was planning on starting to talk about the things that this version will break. And how I was going to do that is this M8 that we're looking at right now, this virtual M8, is running our current version of firmware. So it doesn't really show anything new here. But what I wanted to talk about is a long-standing thing that M8 does that you may or may not have noticed. And that is when an instrument re-triggers without an envelope, you kind of hear a little bonk sound like this. You hear that? And you could actually see the oscillator kind of skipping a beat when it does that. And why it does that is because M8 is 8 monophonic voices, and in order to do fast instrument switching, you kind of have to do a bunch of techniques, or there's several different ways of doing this, but the way M8 handles instrument switching is it tries to make sure to not create any audio artifacts when it does that. It includes everything from like the filter to the oscillator, especially on low bass frequencies, to all the effects sends and all that, like setting the reverb. If we put in a second instrument here and it had like a huge reverb sent to it, and we did fast instrument switching between no reverb and full reverb, when this second instrument would switch out, we'd basically be turning the volume of the reverb all the way down really quickly, and that can create a snapping noise. So the reason why we see this happening, this little clicking thing happening, is just part of the algorithm of how it handles that instrument switching. It's not something I never really desired, but it's also not something I never really noticed too much, because when I'm using M8, I normally have a volume envelope, and so things are always changing, so it's not like it's really noticeable in this context. So that's why I had this MH set up, just to show you that, because the new beta does not do that anymore. So if you set up if you had like an instrument, an old song, and it just doesn't have a volume envelope, but you're using that little clicking sound as a rhythmic device, if you can hear it, it's not really consistent. It's like sometimes there, sometimes not. It just depends on how the oscillators line up when that instrument triggering happens. But in the new beta, this will all sound like one note. You won't be able to hear this, if that makes any sense. It's a good thing, I think, personally, because it acts like how you would expect a normal synth to react that doesn't have an envelope going on. But yeah, let me switch over to, hold on a second, let me set this up. Oh, I need to do something. Wait, I need to do that. Save it. Start a new song. Sorry, I forgot to set up a couple things here to make sure that we're good. There we go. Okay. I'm going to switch out the M8. Nope, that didn't work. Oh, come on. Yay. All right. So this is the new beta. And I'm going to do that same, it's just FM synth with the same thing going on. You can see it doesn't have any sound to it when it's doing that triggering. Now, if you want that sound, for most of the synth engines, there is an effect in here called SNC or sync, and it's just an oscillator sync, which will give you that back. So this sets it up so every time the node triggers, it resets the sync position of the waveform. The same thing is now true with WaveSynth over here. Let me turn this down because this boy's loud. So without the sync, it's just like a solid note here. So you might have to do some of that if you wrote songs that basically use those long sustained notes without an envelope. Hopefully that is clear, right? Sorry, right now people are like drilling into my walls in the background, like as I'm talking about this stuff, so it's quite distracting. Yeah, but then so that's a new feature right here. Is now WaveSynth has this sync thing, which is kind of fun because I was playing with it a bit. Like if I do that, so right now it's like syncing like super quick. I set that to like FF even. Oop. And then maybe like a pitch envelope thing. You get it. It's just like a hard sync kind of thing. All right, so that is a new sync feature that is on WaveSynth. I think FM Synth already had it. Macro Synth does not have it. Anything else? Hypersynth already had it. So yeah, I'm gonna check that feature off the list and move on. Got a lot of ground to cover. No, I'm kidding. It says here that I have. It says that I have hypersynth changes, and I don't think I do. Do I? Does anything here look abnormal? Am I forgetting something about hypersynth that I don't know about, Mikey?
I think everything that was changed is command related.
Oh, okay. So we have a new command, and some of you with eagle eyes probably already spotted it. And that's this one right here called ERR or ERR. And what ERR does is it adds some pitch variety and some cutoff variety and resonance variety too. But basically it is essentially just kind of breaks things a little bit. And I'll demo that with the FM synth. So every time the command triggers, this 0, is a range from 0 to 100% essentially. And so at like FF, it would be full air. And basically what that will do is slightly offset all of the oscillators from each other, as well as mess with the cutoff a little bit. And it's actually quite fun. All the synth engines have it, I think, currently. Yeah, all of them have it. So let me just show you some of this stuff. Keep it off that. So right now it might be difficult to understand what it's doing because this is an FM synth, but basically all of the oscillators are kind of getting slightly detuned from each other. I'm going to set this into the algorithm where it's kind of an additive synth, and I'll probably just set all these to saw. it's just a way of adding some variety into the sound and gives them some character. You could also make it go nuts and have it trigger constantly, which is kind of fun. I set this to FF. Yeah, you get the idea. So error is actually super cool, and I love this feature. It's actually my favorite thing on this new version. The same thing with Hypersynth also has error. Yeah, get the idea. I think I covered what this is for. Gives it some character. Also kind of makes... It's funny on Hypersynth because currently it kind of makes the keyboard go nuts. Hold on. It sounds beautiful. Totally not grating. Yeah. Yeah, look at that keyboard. You get the idea, I think. It does a little bit, it does change the cutoff a little bit too, and the resonance. It's just kind of adds some character. Yeah. Boop, boop, boo. Error effects command. All right. Another thing we have that is new is table ticks. So table tick speed, the speed at which this table runs, has some new things in it. So we have this 200 hertz mode, the super fast mode. We have a note map mode now, right? Since version 4 or 5 or something. Now we have a velocity map and an octave map. So these two are new. And that allows you to basically map a table position to an octave. So if I wanted to do a quick demo of that, you can see right there. So now if I want to just add error, let's say to this second one, or, you know, if you wanted to have different samples play based on velocity, you could do that using the table. Of course, you're still limited to 16 rows. Table tick modes. People are going crazy in this location. Oh, yeah, that's an interesting command. So another new command we have. Kind of went crazy on the commands. It's better if I just load something that uses it. What was it called? Wobbly wind. Whoa, so loud. Give me a second. So what this is doing, if you look over to your right, you can see that it's using 2 channels right now, but there's only one track currently playing. And that's because in here I'm using this thing called NXT. And what NXT is, plays instrument on adjacent track, does not work on track 8. So it'll just basically allow you to play a secondary instrument from table or from phrase to play another instrument to a track to the right of the current track, if that makes any sense. So on here, actually I'm gonna fix this pattern. So this pattern currently is only playing instrument 0. I'm gonna get rid of that. So this is actually the instrument number here, and if I set it to the same instrument, then it's just gonna consume all of the tracks, which you saw there, because it causes kind of a little infinite loop style thing. But And you can navigate between instruments. Oh, if you saw what I did there, if I go from this command, I could go shift right into that instrument number that's currently highlighted. And then in this instrument, maybe I put a different instrument, I could just keep going. So I just basically cloned and created multiple instruments from this one thing. It's a useful feature for having, if you want to have two tracks play the same line at different pitches slightly, to do like a stereo effect, or, there's all sorts of use cases for this feature, I think. All right, next up we have a very exciting feature. I'm going to go ahead and open up the name. The QWERTY Keyboard is now a QWERTY Keyboard. So I know everybody's super excited about that. Look at that. Even spells out QWERTY. So just reordered the characters on this screen so it matches a US or UK, etc. English keyboard. I know, super thrilling. That was just on my list. I had to put it somewhere. All right, another new thing. We're just going through new features right now. You guys have to bear with me. So I don't know how this is going to sound, but I'm going to use this same instrument. I'm going to get rid of the NXT. We have a new clip mode, W3. And what this boy is somewhat asymmetrical in clipping nature. It has kind of a more brutal sound, I think, than... It's similar to AD, but it has a slightly more brutal sound because the waveform is slightly skewed, if that makes any sense on the bipolar, plus or minus. It has a nice crunch. It's just something I threw in there because I was playing around with different clipping algorithms. All right. Does anybody have any questions before I keep going?
There was a question earlier about for the error command. Does it also affect envelopes?
No.
No.
Though maybe it should. I don't know. This is beta time. So my problem with envelopes is you would probably only want it to affect envelopes that are time-based and not tick-based, if that makes any sense. And in my original idea that I had kind of on paper or in my head is it would affect kind of envelopes and kind of everything. It's basically akin to the on modern analog synths, they have like a vintage knob. It's similar to that in the way it operates. And in those, it does change envelope times, but those times are not tick-based, and tick-based, I think, would just break too much stuff to be really fun or useful. That's at least what my thought was on it. Somebody asked if we go over NXT again. So all NXT does is allow you to play using the current instrument, like on this track. It plays a different instrument of the same note on the track next to it. That's all it does. So this number here is just the instrument number to play. But you kind of start going down a rabbit hole as soon as you put it into table. It kind of opens up a can of worms. So hopefully that makes sense. Were there other questions? It's absolute. All right, I'm going to move on. What?
A chat member asks, is error deterministic?
I don't even know what that means, Bryface. So it's random, it's non-deterministic. The number for error is the percentage at which it's allowed to go in terms of range. But every time the error command hits, it'll pull a new value. I don't know if that helps clear it up.
So you're saying it does not work with the seed command?
Oh, yeah, no, it doesn't. Yeah. Maybe set could influence it, but I don't know why you're trying to control chaos. All right.
Brian's a control freak.
Yeah, I know. It's okay. It's okay. I'm going to show you a new feature, and I'm going to load up one of these random breaks that aren't even mine. I think I stole it from Silodux. So we have some new play modes for sampler. That is really quiet. Let me go through them. We have a couple, then they're both the same, so don't get too excited. One is called REPITCH, and all it does is it locks the sample to the tempo, and it changes the pitch of the sample, so that way it matches. So on this mode, you set the number of steps, how long the sample is. So I think this is 4 phrases long or four measures long. And now it's looping perfectly. And when I change the tempo, pretty good stuff. It works with slice mode too, which I found that was pretty fun. So if I still want to slice this up, it'll retain that whatever that pitch was. So when I'm doing slices and that stuff, it's still kind of... You get the idea. It's similar. I think Renoise might call it REPITCH, but Renoise has this feature. There's another mode for this. It's got REPITCH and then REPITCH reverse and REPITCH ping pong, which is basically the loop modes. And then we have REPITCH.BPM, where instead of specifying the number of measures the sample is, you specify the original BPM the sample was. So if we knew that this loop was 128 beats per minute, we just set this to 128 and it does the math automatically. The note values here, well, if we're not in slice mode, the note values here are basically all the same because the pitch of the sample's locked in. Really convenient for loops, for throwing loops in, especially very quickly. My initial testing, this mode was great, just the normal one where you specify the number of measures it is. But then I have like stems that are really long, and that number wouldn't equate. Like there's not enough measures in here for me to put it in. So I'm like, oh, what if I just have somebody, maybe Inbox suggested it, I don't remember, somebody did. But yeah, just doing a BPM. So that way you specify the BPM and it's done. There is no time stretching, but that's about as close as we get right now. Spoilers. Half the chat leaves.
It's over.
Yeah, no. Obviously, time stretching is a bag of worms. It can't be real time. That would be too demanding. I could maybe eventually put it in the sampler to do time stretching, but yeah. I like it saying it's a bag of worms. It's bigger than a can. But yeah.
It's a truck.
Any questions before I move on? Oh, we have one other thing that I might as well just cover here while I had this already set up and I totally destroyed it. So we also have, not edit, go away. Oh yeah, edit. In edit and under process we have reverse now in the editor and invert. So if you want to flip the y-axis or x-axis in here, you could do so. Yeah, that's a new feature. What else do we got? We got the EQ. The EQ now, the very last mode here in type is an Allpass filter, which is super boring unless you know what an Allpass is for, which I don't. I have no expertise in this. But apparently it does something. You can hear me kind of panning it, giving it some stereo depth just by messing with the all-pass filter. Yeah, but I'm sure somebody will figure out a use for that. I decided to put that in there and leave it because it's not really in the way. Yeah, it's kind of an advanced topic. There's definitely some tricks you could do with it. I'm sure I could leave that up to somebody else to show you them. All right, so that's it for that. I'm going to dive in here real quick so you can't see anything. The theme settings has been redone. You can see here it says mode RGB, and you can change it to HSV now. HSV is hue saturation value, and the reason why this is convenient for those that don't know is if you want to change the brightness of some of the elements on the screen without changing the color, you want to be in an HSV mode. Because now, like, if I think the info or the default text is too bright, I could just boop, 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 and it keeps kind of the color consistency between those values. So it's just a nice to have thing. Another thing I added here is this little icon, and if you hold down edit and use up or down or left and right, it'll just change all of the hues of the whole theme. Or just color cycle it forever. I'll reload my theme. Yeah. So it's just another convenience thing that was added. System settings. So, aha. Yes. I moved to be able to do the hue stuff in the theme. I needed to move. I needed to make room in here. And I did so. And now we have a new system settings screen that's accessible from the project view. In here we have the backlight, the font option, the theme, and this is where you edit the theme. Note preview, which used to be in the project screen. We have some things here I haven't talked about yet. Another thing here that we always had, which are song templates, but now we have a UI for it. So if you want to, whenever you click new song, you could store a template that it loads instead of all the default values. As well, we have the splash, some of the options from the boot screen. If you don't know, if you hold down Shift and Option while turning it on, you get to the boot screen, which has some extra stuff in it. And I basically pulled some of those out and put them into here. So splash screen to be able to turn off the logo kind of startup sound thing, headphone protection option, the key delay and repeat settings, which are for, the delay is how long to delay before it starts automatically repeating. And this is in milliseconds. So if I set this to super high and I hold down, it takes a while for it to move. And then the repeat, if I set this to like really fast, then it'll fly across the screen and I have no control over it. Right. We now have a metronome. So I'm going to set the metronome to one phrase. And what that'll do is whenever I do a rendering, enter a song name. Random. Whenever I do rendering, we get to this screen. These two modes will play a metronome before they start. So you heard that metronome, that clacking sound. Its volume is here, so you could crank that if you need to. As well, it uses an instrument. And when you first flash M8 with the new firmware, it'll, let me go to a different instrument. It'll save this metronome instrument inside a system metronome. So this is the instrument it uses whenever that metronome happens. So you can customize this. And you can see here it's using one of the new features. It's using the octave map. So this row here is actually the, what is it, the 1 count, and the rest of them are this number. So that way the pitch or whatever, anything of that metronome can be controlled through that. Yeah, so I could do this again. Settings, turn up the volume, set it to 4 bars, so we could just wait for it to happen. And it also does the same thing in the sampler screen when you record and use song mode for playback. It'll do that metronome click, that count in. So that's a new thing. Another thing we have here is USB audio out options. This gets into a complicated topic, so if anybody has any questions about the previous stuff, I could go over that right now before diving into the USB stuff.
For the metronome,
Yeah.
can you use a sample?
Yeah. Any instrument type. Yeah. So by default, I made a little FM synth. You saw there. I think I still have it loaded. Yeah. Which is literally just using the where is it at? Did I already? Oh my! I can't operate M8 like this. Okay. Yeah, I'm just using the click, the click oscillator. Is all that is. But yeah, you could use a sample.
Someone asks, does the metronome work if 8 tracks are active?
Yes. It doesn't play the metronome while the tracks are playing. It only plays. It's a lead-in. It's a count-in. So once the music starts, it stops.
I think that was the misunderstanding. Is that it is a count-in metronome. It is not an active playing metronome.
Right. I figure for that you could always set up something, but just having a quick count-in is like super useful for this stuff in here. It is not a click track. You could always you could always set up a phrase to just play back a click track if you need one. But for me to add a click track and then have that be customizable, it would be M9, not M8. And I'm not doing M9, I'm doing M8. All right, so we covered that. I'm going through my list here. So yeah, we're going to go into USB audio routing. So by default, it does mix, and mix is the way it's always been, where USB input and output are kind of just, it's taking the main output from here and sending it through USB, and then this USB volume is the input. So if you tried to do pass-through, like if you wanted to use an iPad or something like that for an effect, you wouldn't be able to do it. You get feedback because the mix output, because the USB input for M8 is going through the mixer, and the mixer's output from M8 is going to USB as well. So by default, the mode is mix, which is the way it's always been. We'll go through some of the options here. Pre-track 1 means before this volume in track 1, it'll send whatever's playing in track 1. And same with the rest of the tracks. So I could demo that actually, I think, in theory. So if I turn down this all the way, it's currently being sent through USB. I turn this up, and then I launch something so I could hear myself. Hold on. M8. I hope it's this M8. Yeah. All right, so now it's being routed through Ableton right now. There, just turn up reverb in Ableton. And of course, you could real-time record that if you wanted to take that rendering out of USB. So that's the pre-track options. You could also just do it in parallel in that example. So I could turn back up track 1 and you'd hear both. And you'd hear my horrible latency I currently have in Ableton right now. It's a feature, right? Yeah, what is the latency set on this thing? That's not 64 samples. Oh, it's because I have I have Fab Filter put on here. I'll probably do it. Yeah, there we go. Sorry, in my effects chain in Ableton, I had Fab Filter put on there, and of course, it's gonna do some look ahead magic. So, but yeah, that is that setting. Another option we have here is pre-chorus, pre-delay, and pre-reverb. So if we wanted to just hijack, say, chorus for iPad reverb or your computer or whatever, you could do that. And then over here on chorus, we just turn down the volume. And now per instrument, we have a send amount. You get the idea, I think, hopefully. And of course, you could render that out if you want to, if you so desire. So yeah, pre-chorus, pre-delay, and pre-reverb. The only note here is pre-delay is mono because the delay line is actually a mono delay line. But reverb and chorus are stereo. And then we have line in stereo, so it'll just take whatever's coming in line in and shoot it through USB. Line in left, line in right. Mix and monitor means that this level here is no longer, you're not going to get the feedback anymore. So you can run it in parallel, but it's going to send everything else out. And then we have finally post mix insert. So what this will do is send the main mix output through to USB, and you won't hear it on analog unless the USB is sending back audio. So it's just an insert bus. So let me turn down the reverb in Ableton. Boo, boo, boo. Let's see. Turn down the reverb. There we go. So right now in Ableton, for instance, I have OTT. And it's affecting the entire mix. So it's just a way of doing an insert. Yeah, you get it. You get the idea. You're smart. So yeah, that's the USB audio routing. There's no extra USB I/O at the moment. I don't know when that could be. It's something I always look into, but it's something that is tricky with RAM and with stability. But number one, stability. So yeah. But, you know, that single stereo line can do a lot of work for you just by using this kind of configuration matrix. Do I have any questions? Mikey, are you still there?
I'm looking at some questions here. A user asks, could this work the other way around? For example, only output certain things to analog out?
Only output certain things to analog out.
So, example, you have 2 tracks from, say, track 5 and 6 going to USB only and not outputting through the analog out.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you could do that. All you have to do is just mute the mixer lines here because it's a pre-send. So if you turn down, say 4 and 5 on the mixer here, it's not going to send out to the main audio out. It's just going to go to USB, if that makes any sense. I could do that to this track here. And if I send that P track 1, like you can't hear it, obviously, because it's muted in the mixer, but it's being sent right now to USB. So if I turn this boy up, you'll hear it, because I still have that OTT thing going on. Somebody asked how many channels of USB audio. It's stereo in, stereo out, 1 channel. Can I play sample chops in sample editor mode on an external MIDI controller? Probably in sample editor mode? No, I don't think so. But you can play chops using an external MIDI controller, and there's numerous ways of doing that. Yeah. Should we move on to other features?
Let's do it.
All right.
Let's skedaddle.
What do we got next? Oh, okay. I'm gonna load up an example for this one. We're gonna go to my synth drums demo. I'm gonna move this around. I'm just gonna play this line here. So we have a new type of clipping mode for the main output, and it's available in the scope view. That's new from version 5. It's soft clipping. That's with it on. That's with it off. I can make it more extreme too, just so we have a good example. So it's just a way of making it sound a little nicer when you're going into the red. It also alters the sound a little bit on quieter volumes too, which is why it's not a default on thing. But yeah, it's totally just a new little thing through in there. Soft clipping. I checked that off the list. That's how quick that was. Another new thing is track reordering. And it's available on the song screen. And how you do that is you just go to row 00 here. And if you double tap up, it'll allow you to select a track. And if you hold down edit and move left or right, it'll move that boy over. So this is just a fast way of reorganizing a song, especially if you're working on live sets. If you want certain sounds in certain locations, you could do that. It remaps any track commands that are used throughout the entire song in real time as you're ordering it, and anything else that might use a track as reference. So any of the, I guess the effects commands, the track, what are the mixer effects commands, like these VTs, it'll remap those properly, and any instrument mod that might use a track number for the trigger envelope, it's smart, so it knows how to remap this stuff. So you should just be able to freely rearrange tracks how you will want them to be. That's done. We're done, Mikey.
We did it.
Record time.
Round of applause.
That's it.
Clapping.
I'm just kidding. That's not everything.
By clapping. Uh-oh. But wait. That's not all.
There's less. So I'm gonna show off some new things involving the Launchpad now. We're gonna go to camera view, but I need to load a song first. I'm gonna do this one just because I'm used to it. Make sure I need to enable Launchpad. All right. And I need to switch views. Oh, that's crooked. What happened there? I set this up so nicely and look what happened. Everything's crooked. There we go. Man, if you saw my desk right now, like everything's now crooked. I bet it was my cat's fault. We're just going to blame her. Okay, so Launchpad has some new features, and we're going to try to go over them. What's funny is in my notes, it just says Launchpad. It doesn't say what new things are there. So we're gonna really try to figure this out in real time. So for those that don't know, Launchpad support on M8, which we went over last meetup, etc. Of my use case for it for live performance. It allows you to queue, song rows or parts of a song. You can kind of see it's been reworked on this version. There was a couple small visual bugs with it in the previous versions. Those should be all solved now. Like I think one of them was if like one of these tracks hits a hop FF, aka it stops, it like the light doesn't update correctly or something. But yeah, where do I start on this thing? The mute and solo mode's no longer clear when you switch between the modes. So you could have a bunch of mutes here, and when you switch over to solo and back, it doesn't clear them. So you could switch over to solo, hold down that solo temporarily and release it, and then everything gets, updated. So little enhancement that Mikey wanted.
That was for me.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tim.
You're welcome. And let's see what else. So you can see here, there's now a note mode and a sequencer mode on this thing. Those buttons are now lit up. I'm just trying to figure out like how we want to approach the features on this. Okay, so on note mode, we'll just go through them like this. Note mode is basically just a grid note controller like push or this thing when it's not plugged into an M8. You could just play notes. It'll respond to scales and everything. If you set a global scale on here, it'll be that scale. If you play an instrument that hard codes a scale on the instrument, it'll play that scale. You could switch instruments from the Launchpad by holding down Shift and using the arrow keys. You can see it pulled up the little screen here. You could also record notes from this into a given track by holding down record and pressing play. You see it's flashing there. It'll start recording notes into whatever phrase is playing on that track. Not really going to go over that at the moment. Let's see what else. For session, we have Snapshot and recall. So if you hold down Shift, and you see how this LED lit up record arm. If you click on that while Shift is pressed, it'll store a snapshot, and then to recall it, you just click that. So if you're doing some crazy MIDI mapping thing, or if you're working on, say, recording MIDI notes into M8, you could quickly recover from where you last were and get rid of all that stuff you just did in real time. So we're going to get into the record mode stuff. So there's basically, there's multiple things. Real quick as well, here's another shortcut I'm throwing out there before I forget. If you hold down Shift, and you see how that lights up blue? Well, it looks blue to me, but not to you because my camera. But if you hold that down, this boy lit up, and it just shows you, well, in theory, it's supposed to tell you that you're in live mode. But right now it's not updating. Oh, look at that bug. This is how to switch from song mode to live mode if you want to do it from the Launchpad. But the display didn't update, which is a little annoying. Oh well, I'll fix that in beta 2. But let's get into, so there's two different modes for this. There's the standard like live set mode where you're kind of goofing around and playing, triggering stuff. And the secondary mode is added by just hitting the record button here. And now it's in editing mode basically. So if like, I don't know how to start describing this. You can see the cursor position on here, for instance. And you could also see all the, it looks terrible. I just looked at my camera. It looks terrible on my camera, but basically wherever the cursor is highlighted, it starts strobing the chains that are the same. So you know that if you're going to start editing something, you're going to edit all of the things that are currently flashing. Or it's a subtle effect, but it just lets you know that, hey, this isn't unique, and you're going to start editing some stuff that's going to affect it elsewhere. But you can see clear and duplicate is up here. If I hold down duplicate and I click on a button and then click somewhere else, it duplicates that. If I double tap while the duplicate button is down, it creates a new cloned, or not, you know what I mean, deep clone, basically. You could hold down clear and clear that pad if you want. You could duplicate whole rows by clicking on the side buttons here. So it's a quick way to do song arrangement stuff. Clear that, clear that. If you double tap a pad, boop, boop, we get into this lovely view. And this is the sequencer view. You could also just click on the sequencer button right here. So if I hold down, so how this is broken up is there is 3 sections, 3 visual sections. Down here, the last 4 rows are a note, a keyboard. This 4x4 grid here is our chains for this, and this 4x4 grid is our pattern, our currently selected pattern. So right now I just accidentally created 2 new chains by clicking on this, but I'm gonna hold down clear and clear these chains. If I hold down this chain, you can see how the play button is doing a global song play and not an individual phrase. But if I hold down this chain button and then press play, it'll just play this one. We can see it going there. So there's some features in here in this little grid. If I hold down one of the triggers, you can see this lit up. This is kind of the velocity. So if I turn that down, you could also, you see how these lit up red? That's going to be your octave shift. So it's just a quick octave shift. Another thing you can do is hold down this pad and then change the note using the keyboard here. Whatever. You get the idea. You can also change instruments. If you hold down shift and use the arrow keys, it's the same shortcut that's in the note view. You could pull up the instrument pool and select a different instrument. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I can duplicate this. And you can see I created 2 chains here. Oh, I didn't create a clean duplicate. There we go. But yeah, it's just a whole step sequencer thing now built into the Launchpad via the capture MIDI mode. I don't know if I'm forgetting anything in this mode. Let's see, you could clear, duplicate, you could copy and paste these rows by holding on duplicate and bop bop. It'll do a copy of the whole row here and then paste it somewhere else. I'm going to clear this boy. On this one, I'm going to remove that stuff. And now we're back to where we started. Yeah. So that'll be fun to play with. I'm sure there's probably some lurking bugs. It hasn't been thoroughly tested, but tested pretty well. That's why it's a beta release, guys. What were you going to say?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Are you able to transpose the phrases using the sequencer?
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I forgot about that. You hold down this, and you could use these buttons, and it tells you the transpose of that phrase. Yeah. So all the chain functionalities here, basically, in this 4x4. Thanks for the reminder. One other special mode that I added to this. I think I covered everything else. Oh, no, I didn't. Hold on. Let me. Oh yeah. record mode, go into here. You could hit the projects button whenever you're in the sequencer view, and it'll go to the load instruments view. So you could quickly load up another instrument into your pool. You can see it was still open from when I loaded up that metronome. But yeah, you could quickly just add a sample or instrument just by clicking that, selecting it, and then putting it on here. So when you're in the session view, when you click on projects, it'll pull up the load project screen like it used to. But when you're in the sequencer view, and I think also the note view, it'll pull up the instrument view, so you could load in new instruments into the pool. Yeah. So one more mode of the Launchpad stuff, which is if you hold down Shift and hit Session, you can see this little markers going across here, and it's kind of like a beat repeat. This is kind of hard to describe how it works, but basically it's just like the RMX command, only real time. Here, I'll just show you. So along the bottom here, these are what tracks you want to affect. So if I want to not have like the kick drum be affected or the hi-hats, I just turn those off. I think this is going to be a really fun live thing going on. And you can see how it keeps the phrase transpositions, because it's still going through all of the phrases. It's just locking to a specific region of the phrase. Yeah, I think it's going to be a really fun mode. I'm kind of excited about that one. It's also super fun to play with this on songs that you already made that you weren't planning on doing that to. So yeah, how you get to that mode is you hold down Shift, you press Session, and the session LED lights up into a pinkish color to signify that mode. If we're confused about how this works, I'm going to use the kick drum as example. Because you can see the phrase position here, the playhead, and then I'll go into that mode. Oh, I have to play the whole song, don't I? Hold on, I'm gonna solo just the kick drum, and then I'm gonna go into this view here. So when I hold this down, you can see where the playhead's at right now. It's just looping that first section. So if I just hold down this one, it'll loop just the first row. If I hold down these, you're basically setting a range between 2 points. It just works. I think it works really well for what it is. It's basically a beat repeat. A little bit more advanced and a little bit less advanced at the same time. And it works really well musically, I think, generally speaking. So, questions, comments, concerns?
Does the instrument you play on the Launchpad come out of whatever track is designated on the MIDI settings page, or is it different?
Could you repeat that? For some reason, your connection to me breaks up. I don't know what that is all about.
Apologies. So when you're playing an instrument on the Launchpad, does it come out of whatever track you're currently designated on, or does it use the MIDI settings page? So, for example, if you're using note mode, is it playing the instrument on the track that you're currently sitting on, or does it use
Yeah, it's whatever
Okay.
track's highlighted by the cursor. And that's a good point. You could navigate these left and right arrows in note mode. You see this LED moving here. That's telling you what track is currently selected, that it'll start playing the note mode on. And the same thing with the sequencer. You could use these and it'll go through all the different instruments. Or, sorry, all the different phrases for that song row that it's currently on. It's pretty neat, though, if I... Hold on. Losing my mind. All right. What I could do, go into record mode. I'm going to create a snapshot of the song and just kind of mess up everything across the board. It's a great song. And I just snapshotted the song back to where it was before I messed everything up. But yeah, I forgot to mention that these buttons down here kind of show you what track you're currently on, and you could navigate between the tracks. Or you could just go into session and hold on, go over here. The cursor on the screen here also shows wherever the cursor is at, or you know what I mean. It automatically selects the view depending on where the cursor is positioned in the song. So literally all these kind of shortcuts are doing here is just moving the cursor around. Does that answer the question?
Someone asked, I think so, yeah.
What were you going to say?
Looks like that answered the question.
Oh, okay.
I have two more questions here. So someone asked, it seems that it's getting to the point where these new features are very specific to the LPP. Are there any other hypothetical devices? If you were to support hypothetical other devices, would it not be one-to-one?
Wow. Your connection is awesome. Or my
Thank
connection,
you.
I don't know which. Yeah, hypothetically, we could support other devices. The reason why I chose the Launchpad Pro is because it has full MIDI in and out on the device. Elsewise, you would need a host in between the two things, and that's kind of hacky. Also, the Launchpad Pro is pretty great. Like, if you suggest the Launchpad Mini, it doesn't have as many buttons. So how would I implement half the things that I did on this one? That's kind of my thoughts about it. But, you know, open to the idea.
So a hypothetical alternative controller would require at the bare minimum the kind of setup that this Launchpad has.
I think so.
As it stands. Yeah.
Also, opening up to some kind of API would assume that this is a Linux computer running on a handheld, and it's not. There's no such thing as an API here, and it's all C++. So having some kind of like script language type thing, it would never work on the M8. Well, I've said never before, and you know, sometimes those nevers don't happen. But it's not really an API how it's implemented. It's basically like its own thing. So yeah, Lua could with a lot of headache, but I would also have to compile that. I don't know. Gets into muddy waters real quickly. We got a mega RAM, people. And we're down to like 20 kilobytes. What are you going to say, Mikey?
Oh yes. Another question is, in regards to note mode, can you use it to play instruments polyphonically?
In regards
So
to
if you
note
have,
mode,
like-
could I? I'm confused.
So can you use the note keyboard?
No. The note mode is specifically currently it's specifically for recording. So yeah, it's using the record channel, the MIDI record channel, which leads me to another feature on here is recording MIDI into phrases has been improved greatly from the already improved stuff on version 5. So yeah. Sorry about the smoke. I don't know how that happened. That's my mind melting.
It's everyone's minds collectively melting.
But yeah, I think that's it for the features. Unless there's more questions about the beta, we should go ahead and maybe release it here.
That was my final question, was when is the beta coming out?
Yeah. Right after this meetup. I just thought that we needed to go over kind of, there's a whole scope of stuff that's changed, and it's nice to have a reference video, especially with the Launchpad stuff and how it works. I think at the very minimum, I wanted to do a meetup just to kind of go over all those things. And if you look, the beta is under your seat. So good. But I think that's it. Thank you so much for everybody joining. It has been a very chaotic day for me here at the studio/shop. So I'm glad we were able to schedule this in.
Do we have plans for another meetup anytime soon?
We do. Don't we have a meetup this Saturday?
Oh. Maybe I should make an event for it.
Yeah. We have a meetup this Saturday. I believe Mikey will be in-house for that one. I believe that's this Saturday, isn't it?
It is this Saturday.
Okay, good. But yeah, Mikey's going to be coming down. We're going to go over some stuff. We're going to do a meetup while we're all here together. Might be fun. So somebody asked if there's pre-order dates for the next batch. I have most of the parts for the next batch. I am waiting on SD card sockets, the thing that SD cards plug into, which were supposed to ship to me in a couple days from now, the 11th. But last I checked earlier this morning, it's not shipping until May, early May. But that date is flexible on their part, so I don't know. I'm just going to go ahead and blame Nintendo. I'm not going to talk about politics right now. I'm just going to blame Nintendo. It's Nintendo's fault.
Oh, actually, hey, someone brought up a good point. The beta, you mentioned that the beta is going to break a few things.
Yeah.
And this is actually related to Hypersynth.
That's why I wrote that down. So earlier in the meetup, I mentioned that there were Hypersynth changes, and I didn't remember why. Thank you for the reminder, Mikey. We already went over this, but on Hypersynth, it also has that new ERR command. But Hypersynth didn't have room for this command. And so I got rid of a command that used to be here that's no longer here. It used to say CVO and then whatever that other command was that's no longer here. So if you don't notice the command is gone and your songs look fine, then we did our job and we won't talk about that missing command ever again. I'm just kidding. It's the shift. This parameter is now no longer a effects command. It's still there. And it's still there in LFO and envelopes and everything else. It's just not an effects command because I just did not have the room to put it in here. So if you have an old song that uses that shift parameter, that's going to be problematic because that's no longer there. It'll basically just not have a command there where it used to be. I think when we were kind of talking about it, ERR is super cool. It's really cool with Hypersynth, especially. We already had Hypersynth kind of filled up with effects commands. How many people use the shift as a command and not as an LFO destination, etc.? there's like very few times you would ever want to do that. So we thought that nobody would really notice. But now that I'm bringing it up, I'm sure everybody's going to start yelling about that. Streisand effect. Yeah. Sorry, I shouldn't read chat while I'm doing these things.
That's good. That's how you know it's real time, not pre-recorded.
Yeah. So yeah, that's it. I'm going to be releasing the beta here, and things might change. In terms of during beta, if we discover something that's not optimal, that's what kind of the betas are for in one way. Make sure we got all of the things accounted for. So, all right. Thank you again, everybody, for joining us, and we'll see you this Saturday. You'll be able to submit bundles. We're just going to do a normal meetup. I don't even know if we have a topic to cover other than just maybe we'll get a bunch of microbrew beers and then like taste test them.
We should stream the barbecue, the backyard barbecue. Get a camera and just grill outside.
Yeah, we're gonna be smoking some meats. Terrible. Anyways, hope you guys enjoy the beta, and see you on the Discord. Bye.